to another episode of the Above the Airwaves podcast. I am your host, Stephen Cocaine, and with me, as always, is Tony Tran.
What's up, gents?
And joining us today is the lovely and yet sleep-deprived Amy Smith.
Hello.
Who is gracious enough to join us in her very sleep-deprived state.
Yes.
And today we thought we would do something little special for all the lovers, the dreamers out there. In, I don't know, I guess retrospective Valentine's Day.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
We're gonna do I don't know if you want to call this a Tom Hanks Meg Ryan Power Hour, or if you want to call it a rom-com Power Hour or what, but we're gonna be looking at 1998's You've Got Mail and 1993's Sleepless in Seattle.
I'd like it noted that for Valentine's Day, I personally wanted to do Snakes on a Plane and Anaconda, but it was vetoed on the grounds that we'd have to explain too much to make it understandable why it chose those movies.
I mean, either way, there's going to be historical lessons here because people used to connect to the internet over phone lines, and that sound that you heard, the dialing and chirping and all of that sort of stuff, that's what the internet sounded like in the 90s.
You don't realize it, but that's ones and zeros, folks. Ones and zeros.
Yes.
Bits and bytes.
The
Bits
sound
and bytes.
of binary.
Right there. If you want to hear what the internet sounds like now, there's YouTube clips of it, and it sounds demonic and evil.
Yes.
So, I think the first movie that we're going to be looking at today is going to be You've Got Mail, which is a lovely little romantic comedy based around the premise that people actually used AOL.
This wasn't a big old, sales thing. I mean, I honestly think that this movie, like, somebody just shoved Tom Hanks a bunch of money and said, hey, can you make a movie again? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll just call it my buddy Meg Ryan. We made one a couple years ago. Because, like, there's just aspects of this movie that's just straight up Tom's Hanksy. Like the dude in love with his typewriter. Like, a lot of people don't know this, but Tom Hanks is a typewriter file. He loves typewriters and collects them. So, like, I keep thinking that portions of his character are actually dished out to different people in this series and this movie.
Yeah, like it very much seems like he had a heavy influence on a lot of this. I mean, I know that You've Got Mail is actually based on an old Hungarian play.
Yeah.
And they've made like multiple versions of it over the years, including one that starred like Judy Garland and some other stuff. So it's kind of the, I guess, 1990s modern day version of it.
Was the old play based on written letters?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and play the trailer for you, unless Steve, anything else you wanted to say?
No. Go
Let's
ahead.
do this.
I turn on my computer. I go online.
Welcome.
And my breath catches in my chest until I hear three little words.
You got mail.
What is going on with you? Is it infidelity if you're involved with someone on email?
This woman is the most adorable creature I've ever been in contact with.
Have you had sex? Of course not. I don't even know her. I mean cyber sex. No.
Well, don't do it. Because the minute you do, they lose all respect for you.
In a city where everyone's looking for someone, Joe and Kathleen have discovered the best way to meet someone
Hi.
is to never meet at all.
We just email. It's really nothing. I don't know his name or what he does.
Look.
Or where he lives exactly. What? He couldn't possibly be the rooftop killer.
What they don't realize
What is that? What are you doing? You're taking all the caviar? That caviar is a garnish.
is they already have.
Joe Fox. I'm in the book business.
I am in the book business. What should I have said? The man who has made my professional life a misery.
Tell me something, really. How do you sleep at night? Fight. Fight to the death.
In life, they're at odds.
She's beautiful, but she's a pill.
Online, they're in love.
Do you think we should meet?
Meat. Oh my God.
I'm going to say hello, I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and then I'm going to split. That's what I'm going to do. Why am I even doing this? Why am I compelled to even meet her?
Relax. You're just taking it to the next level.
And I'm not going to stay that long anyway. I already said that, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
No.
He could be the next person to walk into the store. He could be.
May I please come up?
No, I don't really think that is a good idea because I have a terrible cold.
Well, that tells everything. That wraps it up right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really. So, I'm gonna preface this by saying we pulled absolutely zero sound clips out of this movie, and the reason we did is because there is no noteworthy line anywhere in this movie that
To have a
really,
conversation around. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
all the good ones were in the trailer. So.
Any line in this movie taken out of context is basically pointless.
Yeah, I mean, like there was some good giggles and what have you, but like for me, I felt that there was no huge peaks and no crazy dips. Points were all like, did they say that? And points were like, holy crap, they said that. It was just like, oh, that was cute. Oh, that was fun. Oh, that was quaint. This is, this is swell. But at no point was I like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, this movie does have a couple of good things going for it.
Yes.
It is the third time that we see Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks together on screen. The first being 1990's Joe and the Volcano.
Oh yeah.
The second being Sleepless in Seattle, which we'll get to in a little bit, and then You've Got Mail now. So their on-screen chemistry is, if not natural, it's at least well practiced at this point.
At this point, like they're naturally flirty while being angsty at the same time.
Yeah.
Like you can feel that they're butting heads, but they're also like not fully hating each other.
And Meg Ryan in this movie portrays that what's the term the kids use these days? Adorkable, I think. Adorkably cute, quite well. And the supporting cast is pretty phenomenal in this. You've got, in addition to Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, you've got Greg Kinnear, Parker Posey, Dave Chappelle. There's a lot of other actors in this.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely relies on those other characters for some of its comedic elements. Mm-hmm. Which is disappointing because Tom Hanks is a phenomenal comedic actor by himself, and yet the majority of the lines that he gets are fairly drab and flat.
Going
there were
back
some
to
moments he had that were pretty darn funny.
Going back to my earlier, concept of this film where they kind of just shoved Tom Hanks typewriters and money. I feel like this is one of the earlier instances where Tom Hanks was going for a little more drama than comedy, because like a lot of his work earlier on before this was shoehorned into some sort of like comedic, like
Well, he did Forrest Gump 4 years before this.
Yeah,
so by the time he did You've Got Mail, he had already won his Academy Award. He was, Oscar winner Tom Hanks, and this was kind of him trying to step away from a lot of that. Like,
yeah, I mean, it felt like him going back to comedy but being mature. Like he felt a lot older than this than he did in Sleepless in Seattle, where he felt really young in that.
He did. I noticed that.
There was a very distinct difference, and it was only like 4 or 5 years apart.
5.
Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah.
Release date 5 years.
So I mean, like it felt distinctly different in Tom Hanks. Like you just feel a different aura in him entirely.
Yeah. So the basic premise of this movie is two people have been chatting over AOL for quite some time.
Months,
it doesn't necessarily establish.
It felt like years.
But
I got the impression it was years.
A good amount of time, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's Meg Ryan's character, Shop Girl, and then Tom Hanks' character,
Big Boss
NY 152.
Yeah.
And they kind of have this impersonal and yet personal relationship over email, where they don't divulge details about their lives. They don't know each other's names. They've never met each other, but they, talk to each other in regard to their daily lives and, that sort of stuff. And it builds up a kind of ideal persona of each other that they are definitely both attracted to. And turns out that Meg Ryan's character is the owner of a small children's bookstore, and Tom Hanks' character is the owner of a large book chain, like a Barnes and Noble type,
Powell's books.
Powell's,
scenario.
Borders. I mean, I don't know where
Powell's
you're at.
actually is a local bookstore technically.
It's growing though. Haven't they started opening in another state at some point?
No, it's
Really?
only
Is this Oregon?
Yeah.
All right, like I know Borders and Barnes
It'd
and
be like a
Nobles.
Borders and Barnes and Noble type.
Well, when I
scenario.
walk into Powell's, like the one in Portland where it has multiple levels, that's
Yeah.
what that felt like from the Fox
Fox
bookstore
Books.
in the movie.
But it's the very corporate, upscale, super cheap bulk discount books where it's all the latest and greatest bestsellers, but it's hard to find the rarities.
Couches and cappuccinos.
Like people can direct you towards the book you're looking for, but if you give them a vague idea, they'd be like, I got nothing for you. It's it's very impersonal.
You'd be lucky if the people that work there have read a book in the past 6 months. But Tom Hanks is opening up a new store on the west side in New York City. It just happens to be a couple blocks away from Meg Ryan's store, so it's putting her out of business.
Yeah.
She kind of hates Tom Hanks because of this, and he thinks that she's very rude and spiteful towards him because of that, even though it's not personal, it's just business. And it turns out that Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan were the two that have been chatting with each other on AOL. So, their actual persona kind of contradicts the online persona that they've had and related well to.
I like the way that they unfolded how they find out about each other.
Yeah.
One before the other and how that plays out. They do that really well.
So it's.
Did Tom Hanks have a role in the directing or the?
I think the movie was
Anything?
written and directed by Nora Ephron.
Okay.
I don't know if Tom Hanks had any hand
It just
in
feels like it, doesn't it? It feels
Yeah.
very Tom Hanks.
I can imagine that he probably made a good number of suggestions here and there.
Yeah, I mean, he
that
like you
maybe
said,
are
he's
uncredited.
He's won his awards. He's done these before. This is his third Meg Ryan film, so I imagine Hanks would pop up and be like, "Hey, just a heads up. We've done this. We haven't done this. You might want to try this out." I mean, I get the feeling where Tom Hanks as an actor is kind of like that fatherly actor, where like you don't feel like he's talking down to you. You feel like he's legitimately trying to help you out in your career.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tom Hanks has gone on to write and produce a lot of very good movies, like That Thing You Do.
Yeah.
I mean, he even wrote all the songs for that, for the Wonders. All of that sort of stuff. His own son is a phenomenal actor that apparently Tom Hanks used to bring onto set so that he could watch him and observe him to learn how to act, that sort of stuff. And his production company, Playtone, has done a ton of other movies, including, Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio, like really good movies. So, I mean, as far as like a solid writer, director, producer goes, Tom Hanks can do it all. And, we've seen Saving Private Ryan, Forrest Gump, he can act also. So he's kind of the type of guy, I imagine, that if he gets on a movie set and you have any sort of questions, he might be able to provide some input, in which case,
It
you
felt like
end
this
up
had
with
a lot of influence.
you end up with a guy that's addicted to typewriters.
I didn't know that typewriter fact.
Yeah.
He absolutely loves typewriters.
Yeah, he's a huge collector.
Even the electric ones like they had in the movie.
Yeah,
Just pretty much
They're-
any form of like physical typewriter.
I actually watched an interview with him once where he said he does all of his writing using typewriters because he feels like if you're working on a computer, it gives you kind of a safety net where you can type something out and it may not be that great, but you go, oh, well, it's already written, I'll just move on. I'll
I can
come
just
back to
edit
it later
and-
or something like that. Whereas if you're doing it on a typewriter, you really have to think about it, because if you don't think about what you're typing down and you type out something that's maybe not that good, that means that you've got to retype the entire page. You know, so it kind of forces you to do better. And that's one of the things that he liked about it, is it's
cool.
You know, it's because it forces you to do better. It's the only device that both aids in your craft and elevates it, you know. But
so
yes, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this movie other than the underutilization of some characters that could very easily have stepped up the comedy level in this. I mean, you've got Steve Zahn, and he's got one or two funny lines, funny scenes, and he's an amazing comedic actor, and his deliveries are perfect, which is also why he ended up going on to work in That Thing You Do with Tom Hanks. And then you've got Dave Chappelle, who I realized that he's not playing, you know, a comedic role. He's the general manager of Fox Bookstore. So he's not there to be the comedy aspect of it.
He's more of the support character, which is why he's there for their first blind date.
But I feel like they could have used him to throw out a couple more funny lines. Like, I feel like they wrote lines for him that were okay, and he said those lines and he delivered them in a way that was pretty funny. But if they had let him maybe improv a little bit on it, it would have accentuated those scenes.
Yeah. And like that's an instance where, again, you know, I feel that Tom Hanks wanted this to be kind of like a funny movie, but not super funny.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like Dave Chappelle, like, he just got off of doing Robin Hood Men in Tights. He started, you know, being more popular around this time. And so that's probably one of the reasons why he came in on this project. And I imagine if he was more able to extend himself, he probably would have been a lot funnier. But yeah, like, he felt very business in this, to where, like, even his jokes were kind of like, yes, they were a little lowbrow business, you know, when they're meeting for the first time, and he's like going back and forth, like, what's she look like? Oh, she's pretty good looking. It's like, how do you feel about
like that Kathleen Kelly girl? Because if you like her, you'll definitely like this girl. You know,
so like it's very low key, underplayed, but still kind of amusing and fun. And
they'd probably call it a lighthearted romantic.
Yeah,
rather
like
than
ribbing. Yeah. Instead of comedy, you know, he was there to poke fun at the scenes.
Yeah.
Because any scene that he's in, if you notice, Tom Hanks is pretty neurotic in those scenes. So Dave Chappelle is there to kind of balance that out and offer some comedy on that aspect of it. But he's really just there to play against Tom Hanks'
role.
Yeah, like his neurotic behavior, and not so much provide his own level of comedy. Whereas Steve Zahn, in his comedic role, is there because he's the only male presence in this children's bookstore, where you've got Meg Ryan, who's, you know, losing her business and neurotic about this whole online person that she's, you know, supposed to meet up with. You've got her friend that's basically the I don't know what you want to call it, enabler, you know, enabling her neuroticism, neuroses. And then you've got the older lady that works with them that literally gives zero fucks about anything.
Yeah,
she's like, I'm rich and I'm here because I have fun.
Yeah,
you know.
And I fell in love with the, you know, dictator. Well, I mean, where the hell did this come from?
Yeah, the guy that ruled Spain.
Yeah.
The fascist dictator.
I fell in love once with this guy. Wasn't he a fascist dictator? Okay, whoa.
You know, so he
So
plays
all
the
of her
comedy to
friends
all
she
of
worked
that.
with, all the people she worked with, those were her only friends. I'm trying to remember.
She didn't really
hang out
extend
with
outside of
anybody
that.
else.
Yeah.
out
She
of
was
that.
very.
That was her whole life. It
very
was handed down to
centralized.
her from her mother, who died.
What
was her
I thought was
mother's bookstore.
interesting was that there was a pretty clear generational line.
Yeah.
Like the older lady, and then we had Meg Ryan, and then we had her two employees, which were clearly Gen Xers. You know, like the I don't care generation. You know, like the very blasé characters, and then like the very like then you had like Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Like they're kind of not all the way technologically there, but they're like at the edge of it, and so like they're somewhat
boomers.
interested. Yeah.
Well, it said they met in an over 30s chat room. So you've got the over 30s chat room, Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks, that kind of classifies them. But then you've got, Steve Zahn and the younger people that she works with that, all of their conversations are about like, I think they made 4 or 5 cracks about how Steve Zahn lived in a rent-controlled apartment where he got 6 bedrooms for $450 a month.
And the girl was talking about her classes and what have you, and her like there were clearly like generational lines drawn between the characters. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So although you had very little to say about this in general, like I have to say that this movie was roughly 30 minutes too long.
It felt like some of the exchanges were definitely very drawn out.
Like my issue here, and you guys feel free to disagree with me with this, but Stalker Tom Hanks was creepy as all balls. Like the moment he found out, and like he's kind of egging her on to continue.
I don't want to call it Stalker
He
Tom
wasn't
Hanks. I think
egging
I would
her
call it
on.
Manipulator Tom Hanks.
Yes, manipulator Tom Hanks. He's totally just controlling. He's like, yeah, go talk to him. Go do this. Go do that. And at the same time, he's like, oh, I'm not available right now, or I'm busy.
I think he was trying to. He tried to resist doing that and manipulating and taking advantage of the situation, but he knew that there was something there, and he had to fix. They started off really bad, but he had to figure out, how am I going to do this in a way that will mend how we first met and still bring together the two characters that actually had been talking for years or online. I think he did it really well. That was my take on that.
I understood that he was bridging the person from the internet with the person she knows not alive,
Yeah.
and like he's trying to make them the same person.
And you see the struggle in him too. Like he's conflicted about it, but he's trying to do it the most modest way that he can.
But it's so, I don't know, it just feels really weird that he's manipulating this girl in this way. And yes, it's supposed to be sweet, but it's full on like.
At the same time, I think it would have been, it ultimately would have played out the same way based on their characters and their personalities if he had stepped up like right from the beginning when he found out and went, I'm this guy that you've been talking to, and I'm really sorry that you lost your business, but I really like you, and whatever I can do to try and make this up to you.
It wouldn't have worked.
But like
And he didn't take advantage of her manipulator like in that horrible sense that you're thinking of. He never forced her to do anything. He never he didn't actually stalk her. He did. No, he didn't.
Found her address, found her location, found out who she was. Like
showed up at her apartment.
Yeah,
with,
and like
flowers.
would pop up wherever she was at to hang out. Like they didn't actually start planning.
He already had that information because of the business, their rivalry.
He wouldn't have had her home address because of a business rivalry. He would have had to have gone out of his way to get her home address.
But like he was using information from his online access and his own personal access. Yes, he was bridging them together, but like he came to her house and brought her her favorite flowers, like he did, not the persona online. And so, like that's still false pretense of information. He's using information that he himself should not have if he's honestly trying to court her, but he's using all these advantageous positions every time they meet up. Like he orders the right foods, orders the right drinks, be in the right place, has the right things. And so like I get that they're bridging the character, but it's very manipulative the way he's doing it.
It's not done in like a malicious way.
Exactly.
It's done very benevolent.
Because he knows he already knows who she is.
Yeah.
He knows her. They've been speaking for years.
Yeah.
So there is no malicious.
But it also shows...
It's not malicious. It's still manipulation, but not malicious.
It also shows that he really didn't give two shits that he put her out of business.
Yeah, there was no redemption. Like, I thought he was going to, like, you know,
Yes, he
buy the
did.
shop.
He did care.
Well,
Remember him saying that he deserved all of her bad comments?
Yes.
Yeah, but realizing that he deserved it and ultimately caring that he did it were two very different things. Like, realizing that she would be offended because he put her out of business and that she wouldn't like him because he put her out of business.
He didn't care that he put a business out of business. He cared about her and her situation.
Yeah.
And that he affected her situation because it's her and he cared about her.
But I mean, realistically, if he had actually wanted to, you know, do something tangible that would have helped her, he'd have been like, oh, okay, and we're not going to have a children's book section in our store so that you can stay open and, you know, all of this sort of stuff. Like, he could have done something to that level that would have, you know, actually redeemed himself. Instead, he was like, okay, well, I'm going to put her out of business, and then I'm going to use all of this info that I have to get her to forgive me for doing that anyway, and then, you know...
I can understand some of the progress, though, because she would have never gone into writing her own books had she not lost the store that she was kind of shoehorned into because of her mother. But at the same time, though, like, it was still a memento, so it was still a huge loss for her. And so, like, yes, like, I can totally say, you know, like, without this instance in her life, she would have never progressed. But at the same time, she could still progress and still get back that memento. I mean, she was very sad about losing the last memento, or that memento of her mother's. And her
it's like
standing
her
in
mother
heaven.
dying all over again.
Exactly. And so, like, you know, when the last 30 minutes started up and he was like, you know, like, ask him to meet you again. And then he types back and is like, sorry, I can't meet you. I was like, oh, he's going to buy the place back and be all like Gallivant. And it's like, no, it doesn't happen. You know, and so, like, it felt like it was just
the thing is it's not a good business decision because he is, first and foremost, in most of his life, he's been a businessman.
But
that's a huge part of it.
And
plus,
that's
he's not
what
the
I'm
only
saying.
owner of that chain. He's got other people on the board and everything, too.
But that's what I'm saying. He could have just as easily turned around. I mean, children's books cannot account for that large of a percentage of his market that it would have been considered a significant loss for him to turn around and go, okay, we're just not going to have a children's book section in this store.
But I mean, I get what
then
Amy's
she
saying.
could
I
have,
never thought of
stayed
that.
open.
That's an interesting...
But, like, I also
maybe
get what
he
Amy-
never thought of that.
I get what Amy's saying too, and like half of this movie's big premise is that there's a separation between person and war. Like, we're just going to war; it's not personal. Just going to war, not personal. You know, and so, like, I although I wanted that personally, I can understand why he wouldn't do it.
I think
because
it's part of his personality.
exactly, it's a separation of church and state. It's like we went to
Yeah.
war, there was loss, but that doesn't mean that there can't be peace afterwards. And so
Yeah.
this is him having that peace.
I feel like at the end of this movie, though, Tom Hanks got everything that he wanted. You know, he got the girl, he got his business opened, he's hugely profitable, he put all of the competition out of business, and he essentially has no consequences for any of his actions. Whereas at the end of it, Meg Ryan is forced to change careers. She was the one that had to forgive Tom Hanks and choose to be with him. You know, her store that was attached to her mother went out of business. Like, I give this shit like a year, 2 years tops before she ends up dumping him out of resentment.
And
I don't know about that because of how slow it progressed. There was an evolution to their
I mean, like,
relationship.
it was like a year-long progress. Like, it hadn't just been around the corner. But
Yeah, and that's why I think that when you said that there were moments that lasted too long, I think they played that really well because there was an evolution of their relationship.
But still, I feel like Tom Hanks got everything he wanted without having to really face any consequences, whereas Meg Ryan had to sacrifice literally her entire life.
So, as to my manipulation portion of this, I want you to think about this, Amy, because this is important. At the end of the movie, all right, she says, you know, when she meets Tom Hanks' character, like, I was hoping it was you.
Yeah.
All right, and so you were stuck with Tom Hanks with a win-win. Either she'll choose me or she'll choose this internet guy who is me. Where Meg Ryan is fought between, like, I'm falling in love with this guy I thought I hated, but I'm also in love with this guy on the internet that I've never met in real life. Well, no matter who Meg Ryan chooses, it's going to be Tom Hanks. where no matter who Meg Ryan chooses, it's going to be Tom Hanks. So Tom Hanks isn't a win-win, and Meg Ryan doesn't know that.
She's torn.
Yeah, she's torn between the same person, and so like, oh hey, it turned out they are the same person. But I mean, like,
she has to have that emotional battle over it, where Tom Hanks is sitting back going, well, either way, I'm going to win.
So she never had a choice between different people. It's the same person.
If they hadn't have had the businesses conflicting businesses issue, they would have hit it off right away, and it wouldn't have been an issue.
Which is why, like, had they ended it without her meeting, NY152 and just choosing.
I think he knew that, and he knew that she would have known that too.
But see, like, that's our hope,
do.
is that she's aware.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying.
I still feel like Meg Ryan got the shaft.
She did get a lot of shaft. That sounded bad.
If you think about it, it's Meg Ryan lost her business.
Yeah.
Lost the store that her mom opened, the last thing that really connected her to her mother.
Her employees that were depending on her, that the one girl specifically said, if I lose this job, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
honestly, that's kind of the reality of the economy.
Yeah.
It did comment on how Steve Zahn's character was actually working for Fox Books afterward.
Oh.
So apparently he left to go join the enemy anyway, which means he didn't really have as much loyalty to the whole cause as, the
other 3 employees.
Yeah.
Well, it's life.
Plus, both of them were in relationships at the start of this movie.
Yeah, half-ass relationships.
But still, they were both in relationships, enough to the extent that they were keeping their online relationship at a distance, So without the whole bookstore opening and then all of the manipulation, Tom Hanks finding out about it, all of that sort of stuff, I don't know if they would have ever gotten to the point where they'd have been like, hey, let's meet anyway.
Oh, that happens eventually, no matter what. That would eventually happen.
How
would it not?
Well, I mean, if they'd gone on for so long without getting to that point, then why would they have...
Well, to spur that moment. Kind of.
I mean, the only thing that spurred that whole we should meet thing anyway was opening up the bookstore and having all of the problems and, all of that sort of stuff. So, I don't know. To me, it feels like Meg Ryan
he asked her
lost out everything, and Tom Hanks got everything he wanted, manipulated his way into, the finish line.
I have to say the one thing that I really did appreciate on Tom Hanks' side is that, he was given the insight of this is what I could be like when his father came back, and it turned out that his new wife was, cheating on him with the nanny who he was cheating on the previous wife with, who he cheated the previous wife with and cheated the previous wife with.
Oh yeah, talking to his dad.
Yeah, Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks was looking at his dad, and his dad's like, "Oh, that's what happens when you live our life." And Tom Hanks like, "F that."
You could see in his face. He's like, I don't want to be my fucking douchebag dad.
Tom Hanks out.
He realized he's turning into a douchebag. He didn't like it.
Well, not to mention, he also realized that he really hated his girlfriend. There's that scene where he's talking to...
I love the elevator.
Well, not only the elevator scene, but there's a scene where he's talking to Dave Chappelle, and Dave Chappelle is asking... if he was, why is he so happy? Was he getting married to,
what's her nose? Yeah.
Whatever her name is. Oh. And he's talking about her, and he's like, no, she's great. No, I mean.
She makes a great cappuccino.
She makes a great cappuccino. I mean, she's the only person I know who makes coffee nervous. But it's like, he even when he's talking about how good she is, he's still like, oh, she's good, but.
Yeah, she did the same thing with Meg Ryan's character, too. At the beginning, he's like, she's beautiful, but she's a pill.
Yeah. Because he's trying to justify being...
a douchey businessman.
Yeah.
All right.
All things considered, though, I can't mock this movie too much because it was a hugely critical success, commercial success. I mean... I don't think critics thought it was hands down a great movie, but more than not thought it was. And it did pull in like $250 million off of a $65 million budget, debuted at #1 in theaters, that sort of stuff. And I guess the timing of this movie was really good for what it was, because in 1998, that was kind of the early adoptive phase of the internet where, everybody kind of knew what a modem was and all of that sort of stuff.
Instant Messenger
and that whole shebang, to the extent that a lot of people could relate to it.
Yeah.
So the timing of it was very good. The script wasn't bad. The direction was pretty good. Cinematography was pretty good for what it,
a lot of fun
laid
scenes,
out.
like early on the characters crossing over, not knowing each other, then like the moment once they realize who each other are, like realizing how intertwined their lives are, like that was really interesting to see and a lot of fun to like have them interact.
And even the little plays like accentuating the moods that they're in. Like at the start of it, after Meg Ryan had been chatting with Tom Hanks online over email or whatever, and then she's coming to the shop and she's all happy and she's unlocking the door and there's the cabbies right behind her that are yelling at each other like, hey, I'm trying to fucking drive here. And she's unlocking the gate and she's like, don't you just love New York in the spring? Just those little things. It was very well written to that regard.
I love daisies. Aren't they just the happiest flower?
Ultimately, I'd say it's a good movie. If I had to personally rate it, 5.5, 6.
I gave it a high 4, low 5. So yeah, and that's with a Tom Hanks bonus point.
I'm being super generous with a 6, and the reason that I'm saying this is that I have seen this movie a couple of times, but I really don't feel like it's one of those movies. It's not The Princess Bride or something, that I'm like, oh, this is a romantic comedy that's going to go down in history as a great romantic comedy.
I'm going to quote this in the future. No,
I mean,
not going to happen.
If this was When Harry Met Sally or something, I'd have to speak up about that. But You've Got Mail, just, I don't know, it feels, watching it now, it feels very dated.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't hold up
you don't say.
to the test of time. Well, even the concepts and the principles behind it, it's just, I don't know, it feels weak to me. And there's not a lot of saving graces throughout the script. So, being generous, I'll give it a 6, and that is to say a 5 with the Tom Hanks bonus.
Yeah. All right, Amy, what's your go?
I'll go a half a point ahead of that because I got a lot more introspective stuff out of it than sounds like you guys. You guys made some really good points and have really good observations. I just had, I don't know, I connected with it a little bit more personally.
Yeah. Because
there was humility and I don't know, self-evolving stuff that made a lot of sense to me and I related to. And it was cute. It was really cute.
You're talking to one of the guys that will give pretty much anything with Jason Statham and Vin Diesel extra points. So honestly, like your scoring is probably more relevant than mine is. Where I'm like, the third XXX movie, that's got a 7 for me.
Right?
Was it good? No, it was a terrible movie.
And Tom Hanks had a dog, and there was a scene where he was trying to decide whether or not he'd respond to because he knew it was her. He's pacing back and forth, and the dog's following, and all you see is the dog's tail. It's so cute. There's a lot of visual cute things in it.
So your official score is?
What was yours, Steve? 6?
6.
6.5.
6.5. All right.
We're gonna take a brief intermission before we swap over to talking about
we gotta hear
Meg Ryan's
Tony's
Stalking.
rating.
Oh, I said it was a high 4, low 5.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're going to swap over to discussing a movie where Meg Ryan stalks the shit out of Tom Hanks.
Yes, she does.
So if you
Role reversal.
need to get up, go to the bathroom, grab a drink, do whatever you need to do, go ahead and do it now.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby. to get ourselves a treat.
You know, one of these days I'm actually going to get a treat during the intermission. I feel like I deserve a treat at this point.
One of these movies had that music
Yes.
in the theater scene.
Yes.
Which movie was it?
That was You've Got Mail.
You've got
You've
mail.
Got Mail.
They're sitting in the theater,
When
it's playing in the background.
Greg Kinnear and Meg Ryan are sitting in the theater.
Yeah, and Meg Ryan realizes that this guy isn't doing it for me and gets up in the middle of it and walks away because he's like, no.
Oh, yeah.
So now we're going to be discussing the 1993 romantic comedy Sleepless in Seattle, starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, also directed by Nora Ephron.
Oh, what?
Oh,
Yes.
dang.
However, this time it's from a screenplay that she only co-wrote. So, but apparently Nora Ephron is the one that we get to thank for all of these Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan romantic comedies.
Who was in this? Rob Reiner, I think, was in this. And
Yeah, we got Rob Reiner, Bill Pullman, Rosie O'Donnell, for what it's worth.
I specifically liked Bill Pullman in this. I was kind of surprised. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about him at the beginning of it, but towards the end of it, I liked him more than I did at the beginning, which at the beginning I was like, eh.
I want to feel like
Who's
he
Bill
was
Pullman? Who was he in this?
her boyfriend that she, or fiance.
Fiance.
I guess.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I feel like he was a little
Walter.
autistic, maybe, or disconnected
was
to some degree
special.
from reality.
He was a bubble boy growing up. It's pretty clear from all his allergies. He was probably a bubble boy growing up.
Yeah.
Although, I was watching this with Tally, and she made a really good point. The dude was specifically allergic to wheat, and not the same wheat that's used in white bread. And,
Yeah.
like, I don't know if that's physically possible.
No, because he ordered
Yeah, 'cause
white
he-
instead of wheat.
he
It's
ordered
not
white-
physically possible.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he ordered white bread, and she ordered wheat bread, but they mixed it up, and he had
Yeah.
a reaction. I'm like, oh.
Well,
Yeah, I noticed too.
It is technically possible to be allergic to wheat husk, which you would get in whole wheat, but not refined wheat flour. I mean, it's like super, super rare, but it's possible.
I'm kind of convinced that he was a hypochondriac more than anything
Then again,
else.
at that point, he could have
be.
eaten the rye bread and been perfectly fine.
Like, I think it was all grain. It was wheat. It was wheat bread that she ordered.
Yeah, because when they're talking about the dim sum, he
Yep.
says, "Well, is there wheat in it?"
Yeah, exactly. I'm just left thinking like, I don't think someone really studied allergies properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. That was also a long time ago too. I mean,
1993. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was technically long before anybody realized things like, oh, it's not the wheat specifically; it's the wheat gluten, or maybe
the
he
wheat
just
protein called gluten,
maybe he just had celiacs.
Yeah.
Who knows?
and that's not an allergy; it's an autoimmune disorder.
Well, he had
you
his
know.
fair amount of allergies as
He did,
well.
he did.
So, and he was also allergic to strawberries and.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not allergic to salmon. I don't think.
No, he said, I don't like it.
No, I thought he said, I don't think.
I thought it was I don't think.
He's like, but you never know. And then the other guy,
Yeah. I was like, I developed an allergy later on.
Yeah.
Like just going on about.
it could happen at any time.
I'm allergic to bees.
So
That was hilarious.
let's go ahead and run the trailer for this one, and then we'll give
Yeah.
a little bit of a plot breakdown on it. And
Let's
I think
go. Trailer button.
If you've just tuned in, we're talking to Sleepless in Seattle.
You called a radio station? Christmas Eve. He phones in one of those radio call-in shows. He tells them
that his dad needs a new wife.
And this shrinkette practically forces the guy onto the phone and says,
Tell me, what was so special about your wife?
Well, Dr. Marshall Fieldstone, I think it was like
magic.
magic.
Sleepless in Seattle?
That's what she called him on the show because he can't sleep.
And now 2,000 women want his number.
Dear Sleepless in Seattle, you're the most attractive man I ever laid ears on.
The guy could be a crackhead.
Actually, he sounded nice.
You know it's easier to be killed by terrorists than it is to get married over the age of 40.
That's not true. That statistic is not true.
That's right. It's not true. But it feels true.
Sandy has a girlfriend, Glenda. She's a weightlifter. I mean, it's not like her neck is bigger than her head.
No. I'm not asking you to set me up.
What about Walter?
Walter and I are engaged.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man, face of the earth.
The Lou Gehrig line. The Lou Gehrig line.
When's the last time you were out there?
Jimmy Carter, 1978.
Things are a little different now.
I am having all of these fantasies about some man I have never even met who lives in Seattle.
It rains 9 months of the year in Seattle.
I know!
Tiramisu.
What is tiramisu?
You'll see.
Some woman is going to want me to do it to her, and I'm not going to know what it is.
You'll love it.
What if I never meet him? What if this man is my destiny and I never meet him?
Your destiny can be your doom.
I want to meet you.
Dad, read this, read this.
Where is Seattle? Right. Where is Baltimore? Ah, it's right there. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 26 states.
But what I really don't want to do is end up always wondering what might have happened and knowing I could have done something. Is this crazy?
That's what I'm trying to tell you. What women are looking for. Pecs and a cute butt.
This is the one I like.
There is no way that we are going on a plane to meet some woman who could be a crazy, sick lunatic. Didn't you see Fatal Attraction?
I mean, you can't even turn on the news nowadays without hearing about how some babe thought some guy's butt was cute.
So has my butt.
Not bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it cute, though?
You grading on a curve?
So,
I have a question.
yes.
What is tiramisu?
Tiramisu is cake.
It's an Italian cake,
I
actually.
thought that sounded familiar. It's the kind of soft, moist
Yeah,
cake.
yeah.
that-
They use,
It's multiple layers.
lady fingers, custard,
Yeah.
and then espresso powder on top.
Okay.
It's delicious.
Yeah, it's super delicious. Although, actually, I prefer a crappy tiramisu. Like, I don't know what it is about good tiramisu. I don't like it very much, but our local
anytime
market...
somebody says that tiramisu is like, oh my god, this is the best tiramisu ever, like I try it and it's always like really dry.
Oh,
like,
it's got to be moist. That's the
Yeah,
best.
see, like, I like...
like
our
I want
local-
the kind that you pull out of the refrigerator after 3 days and it's got all the condensation that's like made it soggy.
Yeah.
And oh,
See,
it's
like
delicious.
I like our local market, Safeway. We have they have a tiramisu cake, and it's actually like a cake with tiramisu, like, you know, frosting and what have you on top. And like, I prefer that. Like, I like actually having something physical to bite into rather than a goop.
Mm-hmm.
Which good tiramisu just comes in goop in your mouth.
Yeah, like the best tiramisu is the kind that you can eat with a spoon. I think you don't need a fork for.
I agree.
Yeah, it's like super delicious.
All right.
As for how you do it to a woman, I'm not sure.
Well, you see,
That's why it threw me off. I'm like, wait, maybe tiramisu. It's a different word they're using.
The system's the same. You start with lady fingers, and then you put some custard on it, and then some espresso.
Oh, nice. Nice.
I see how that.
Nicely done.
I see how that works.
All right, yeah. Science. Whoosh.
So, super brief description of this movie is movie opens up with Tom Hanks' wife having died. He has an 8-year-old son, or I guess
It was 7
at the start of the movie he's 6.5, 7, something like that.
Some Italians steal his car, kill his son. You go, wait, no, hold on, that's John Wick.
No. This is to aid in his grieving process, he moves from Chicago to Seattle, where he is an architect. With his son, a year and a half after his wife died, on Christmas, his son decides to call into a radio talk show, one of those like radio psychiatry shows.
Yes.
And
his
Tom
dad's
Hanks
still
ends up
depressed.
talking on the phone with the radio psychiatrist.
Robot.
Yeah, Dr. Marcia.
And this is Dr. Marcia.
Who refers to him as Sleepless in Seattle, which is tie into the title of the movie. And that basically causes a whole bunch of women across the United States to fall in love with his story. And Meg Ryan in particular gets super stalkery on him and uses all of her tools as a journalist to hire private detectives to do background checks, get photos, figure out his address, so on and so forth.
She actually followed him around and watched him with his
Flies to
son.
Seattle, follow him around,
Creepy.
write him letters that I guess Rosie
No.
O'Donnell technically sent the letter,
Yeah,
but
she
she
didn't
wrote
actually.
it. And the whole, let's meet on top of the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day.
Which was a huge, what's his name? Something Grant.
Cary
Grant film.
It's
where
an
they
old
met.
film.
So, and then the eventual meeting and love at first sight.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Destiny fulfilled. Stalker destiny fulfilled.
Yeah, it's super stalkery. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way. I mean, I suppose there's kind of a little bit of leeway on this because it was 1993. You didn't have the internet.
Mm-hmm.
The best bet you had for immediately getting a hold of somebody was hope that they have a pager.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And otherwise...
I know, I remember asking when she was going and to his house and knocking on the door and trying to...
Here's the boat running.
Sees the boat, so she follows him and watches him and waits for, I don't know, an opportune time to actually introduce herself, and she chokes anyway. But
I remember there's a scene in Hot Tub Time Machine where
I'm like, why didn't she just... they don't have... You can't just Facebook message someone or friend them.
She didn't have the Motorola dinosaur available.
There's a scene in Hot Tub Time Machine where one of the kids is hitting on some girl or something, and she's like, yeah, come find me tomorrow. And he's like,
oh yeah,
find you? Do you have like, what's your cell phone number? Do you have
text you.
Do you have can I text you? And she's like, what? Just come find me. And he's like,
be there.
How? You know, so there's a little bit of leeway on that, but like there's a very fine line between actively trying to track somebody down and stalking the shit out of them. And Meg Ryan stalks the shit out of him.
I'd also like to bring up something very important to me, near and dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. So they initially meet when Meg Ryan stalks him and flies to Seattle, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason why they meet at the airport is because Tom Hanks' character is seeing his dating interest off at the airport.
Yeah.
And so sees him off, Meg Ryan comes in. Meg Ryan then immediately drives to his place, where I assume Tom Hanks has the secret route to get there faster.
I noticed this too. They got there first and got in the boat.
She was driving. She had the maps up and stuff like that. She didn't know how to get there.
But this is where it gets very important. She follows them via bridges and tunnels and what have you to their location, where then dating interest who flew off on an airplane.
No, that was his sister.
That was his sister.
Was that the sister?
That was
that was
okay, because I did not recognize it. I'm like, where the hell did you come from?
Yeah,
that was the sister who was dating the guy that was
David Hyde Pierce.
No.
The bee allergic
Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat guy.
Okay,
He's on, what is it? DC's Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That guy.
Yeah.
They're talking about the. When his sister is talking about the Cary Grant movie and she starts crying. And then
every girl in this movie talks about that Cary Grant movie and starts bawling, describing.
Even the 8-year-old girl who watches it is
she's like,
this
I love
movie
this
is the best movie I've ever seen.
I know, what the heck?
Which, oddly enough, like when the two dudes are talking about like cute butts and how to like introduce and how to date girls, like just like be swallowed by Cary Grant. I'm like, what is it? It's like this is a very key element in 1993. You're either Cary Grant or you weren't.
Yeah.
Well, apparently with the grunge movement going on, it was, you either had your typical college rock, not so into the feminine aspects of masculinity, and then you had the Cary Grants.
Yeah. I also like the fact that like all the scenes were on location. You know, where like it wasn't at any point like, well, this kind of looks like Seattle, and this kind of is like, no, like they went to Seattle, they went to Pike Place, they went to York, where nowadays generally like film studios will try to find what's cheap, and I was like, oh, this kind of looks like Boston. It's like it's Portland.
He lived in a houseboat, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty rad.
Yeah.
The
live in a houseboat.
The one thing that does kind of disturb me about this movie, so having watched Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail, I would say that You've Got Mail is the better movie.
Yes.
Because Sleepless in Seattle feels to me like it was not a very well-crafted plot.
See, it's a fantasy. It's a romantic
Sleepless
fantasy.
More, actually.
To me, it feels like the plot of Sleepless in Seattle is... I mean, it's more realistic to the extent that, she did really go out of her way to stalk the shit out of this guy. But then at the end of it, it relies entirely on the, oh my God, it's just a love at first sight, magic, whatever type thing.
The whole movie in the scenario was completely unrealistic, but it was fantastical and magical. cheesy love story.
I mean, the core of this movie was destiny. It was meant to be like there was a line that the kid says that really like gives you the central issue of what's going on, and he's like, it's all about destiny. And this is coming from an 8-year-old kid who hears this from another 8-year-old girl, and this is something that I don't care who you are or where you are, no 8-year-olds are talking about this. But I'm gonna play the clip.
Dad, I was talking to Jessica about reincarnation. She says you knew Annie in another life.
Who's Annie?
The one who wrote us. But Jessica says you and Annie never got together in that life. So your hearts are like puzzles with missing pieces. And when you get together, the puzzle's complete.
God damn it.
The reason I know this and you don't is because I'm younger and pure. So I'm more in touch with cosmic forces.
Who told you this stuff?
What the actual shit, man?
I love that I love it when kids say things like that.
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger saying smart stuff. You know.
Have you tried turning it back off and on again?
Yeah.
Restart your router.
So I guess yeah, if you believe in those kinds of things, destiny and fate and synchronicities meant for each other, soulmate stuff, then yes, it would be a realistic movie.
Can I just take this opportunity to comment on how his 8-year-old friend Jessica annoys the shit out of me?
Dude, she was the most annoying. So she was using things that even people today don't use. And here's a clip of her, like her first introduction in the movie and conversation with Tom Hanks.
H&G. Hi and goodbye.
It's just very smarmy. And like, I'm sorry, like even in the age of text, which was 3 years later, 96, 97, where Nokias became very prominent and people actually cell phone a lot more. Like the most that a person would say verbally is LOL or lol, in which case it's still like it was frowned upon and only used ironically.
It wasn't even until the early 2000s that people would throw out the OMG.
TTYL.
Yeah.
Well, like, she pulled a lot that I've never heard before that probably never got used.
ROFLMAO.
They didn't catch on.
Yeah, and it was like,
OMG WTFBBQ.
Right, where's my son? Where's my son? And why? It was like, what? New York. It's like, no, like this is just like her own little self-developed linguistic challenge.
You're not saving time. If you have to go HND.
She was rebellious. She'd roll her eyes a lot.
You know,
like she was trying to be that very learned character.
She was doing it on purpose.
And to be fair, Meg Ryan and this girl's mother and this girl were all using DOS-based computer systems because Windows wasn't really fully developed yet at this point.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so, like when she's searching,
this is 1993. You had maybe Windows 3.1, but you know.
But yeah, like it wasn't a heavy thing, and so like I'll give this girl some credit because like hopping on her mom's computer, actually like running the program to get the airplane like tickets squared away and set up. I mean, even at this point, modems were huge. She was running on like a 28 or 26 or whatever. Like
that would have been in 1993. Probably a 28.8.
Yeah.
I mean, if she was like top end cutting edge technology, she might have had like a 33.6.
Yeah.
Something.
Their parents were travel agents.
So
they have to have the equipment.
Yeah, and then like Meg Ryan's sitting there and just like doing like generic searches on her. Just like this is crazy. This little girl's doing this, but. But yeah, and they did a whole lot to represent that these 8-year-old kids were super mature. At the very beginning, the kid calling into the radio station, and then later on, when Tom Hanks has decided, like, you know what, I gotta start dating again. Like, I need to start doing this again. And so you get this line, which sounds very odd coming out of this kid's mouth.
If you get a new wife, I'll guess you have sex with her, huh?
I certainly hope so.
Will she scratch up your back?
What?
In the movies, women are always scratching up the men's back and screaming and stuff when they're having sex.
How do you know this?
Jed's got cable.
Jed's got cable. He probably got the hack box, the chip.
Yes. Either that or he, just kept canceling his subscription, renewing it to get the free HBO package.
Get that Skinamax HBO.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that interpretation of just kids growing way too old, way too fast. And I think that was one of the big fears at the time was technology was creeping in and these kids were getting way smarter than some adults. And so like you got these in these movies where like they got away from the whole the mall generation where kids were wasting their time at the malls and now it became kids being hyper intelligent.
Yeah. And It does.
And now they're all dumb.
It does kind of flip the parental role with Tom Hanks and his kid to the extent that even though Tom Hanks is the parent and he is trying to parent his child, it seems like the child is trying to take care of him. Like Tom Hanks is meeting all of the requirements that he needs to take care of his child on a physical level, making sure he's safe and, you know, watched over. He's got babysitters, you know, stuff like that.
And emotional, psychological. Maybe when he had the kid had a nightmare. And he came
to a degree, when he has the nightmare, he even says like, "Oh, I know your mom used to take care of all of this stuff." But then the kid is taking care of Tom Hanks on the emotional level, the psychological level, where it's, I know my dad is depressed and he's not sleeping. I'm going to call into this radio talk show and, you know, say how concerned I am. And then
pretty mature kid,
you know, that sort of, even having, you know, conversations about like the girl that Tom Hanks finally ends up going out and dating. You know, the kid's like, look, these are all the things wrong with her, and they annoy the shit out of me. How can they not annoy the shit out of you?
Well,
you know?
Remember him explaining to his son that you have to try people out.
Yeah, there's a dating process.
He's just dating her to figure out all the nuances of dating. And
yeah, but I'm totally gonna have to say that I agree with the kid, because after hearing that kid laugh,
Everything all right?
Oh, yeah. Do you have kids?
No.
You want mine? I will have an absolute straight up, please. Sir.
And she laughs pretty much the whole freaking movie.
Throughout the entire...
Anytime she's in the scene.
Just the worst.
Like, I think the only thing that they could have done that would have been potentially worse than that is to have cast Fran Drescher in that role.
Oh yeah, just her talking. It's like just grating on my ears.
I mean... It's so annoying listening to that laugh, and it happens in every scene that she's in, and it's just kills me.
What's interesting is that they got David Hyde Pierce in this, and he actually plays a really interesting role because he kind of plays the foil, the opposite of Love at First Sight, Destiny, Cosmos.
He's Meg Ryan's brother, right?
Yeah, and so he plays the practical, we fit together, we suited each other, it's a natural step. And so Meg Ryan, who's on the fence of, it's like, I'm not sure, I'm falling in love with this guy across the, United States, but I have this guy, Bill Pullman's character, who's, by all means, like a solid fit. He's a good guy, he's kind, we work well together, we work in the same industry, but there's a fire missing. And so she goes to
perfect.
Yeah, David Hyde Pierce, and is like, so like, give me some advice, big bro. And he says this.
What?
I mean, why did you get married? Was it all trumpets and fireworks and...
I got married because Betsy said we had to break up or get married. So we got married.
That was it.
That's his reasoning.
Yeah. So, there you go.
Ultimately, though, like, I would be hard-pressed to rate this movie higher than You've Got Mail, but it would also be difficult for me to rate it too much lower because they're so similar a movie. I mean, yeah, the plot in them is different, but they both work off of the same, developing an interest or falling in love with the persona of somebody that you've built up, and then having that pan out to match the real thing.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, in You've Got Mail, at least they really know each other's personality. Like, not the personality that you present when you're like face to face, but like your real inner personality.
Yeah.
And in Sleepless in Seattle, she knows about an hour of conversation about this dude.
Yeah.
Like, knows nothing, doesn't finds out through stalking that, he used to be an architect and his wife is dead and he has a kid.
Yeah.
And in You've Got Mail, they have interactions. And in Sleepless in Seattle, there is almost no interactions till the very end of the movie.
There's like 3 points where Tom Hanks looks and says, oh, look, Meg Ryan, hey, I feel
he
like
says
we should
hello,
be
she
together.
says hello. That's it. And then
and
the end of
tries
the
to-
movie. That's,
Well, like the clip
That's
we
it.
played with the kid talking about, reincarnation and puzzle pieces, they're actually in the airport and he's trying to follow Meg Ryan, who he just saw get off at the terminal.
Mhm.
He's trying to follow
saw
her
this pretty girl and he's
because, I don't know, love at first sight
Something
or
clicked, I
It's
pretty
that
girl,
magic
pretty
they were
girl,
talking
Meg
about.
Ryan, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like the destiny and the
That's the fun stuff.
And
I think personally, I'm gonna give this movie maybe a 5.5. And
So definitely lower than You've Got Mail.
a little bit lower.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll give it the 5.5. It's not a bad movie. I don't feel like I have to recommend it to anybody. It is what it is, and I really feel like You've Got Mail and Sleepless in Seattle are pretty interchangeable. If somebody was like, I want to watch a Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks romantic comedy, first I would tell them to go watch Joe versus the Volcano. And then I would
And
tell
then
them
toss a
that
coin.
if they wanted to watch another one, flip a coin and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Pick one or the other. Do you want long hair Meg Ryan, short hair Meg Ryan? Long
Oh,
hair,
yeah,
Tom
we didn't
Hanks,
make
short
that
hair.
point.
Yeah, holy crap! Yeah,
Long
this
hair
movie.
Meg Ryan.
You almost never see long hair Meg Ryan. You just almost never see it. And like the fact that she appeared in this, I'm like, who the hell are you?
I know.
Who is this person?
Oh my gosh, that's right. She had long hair. It's
To the point where like I just didn't believe it was really her hair. I feel like, is it a wig? Is it extensions? This isn't really your hair.
We're so used to her having short hair.
And the similarities between these movies just keep on going. I mean, both movies also have Somewhere Over the Rainbow in the soundtrack.
Oh, I know. Both movies. Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
I mean, there's different versions, but it's Somewhere Over the
Still.
Rainbow. Both movies, both directed by Nora Ephron, both written in part by Nora Ephron, both starring Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan. Both have the, distant fall in love with a persona of a person and then have that work out in the end where, you fall in love with the actual person.
Yeah.
Both have rather coincidental extreme circumstances all falling into place to have that work out. Both have some high levels of stalking or manipulation in them. I mean,
I guess they're both based on a previous story, like the one's from the play and the other one's from the Cary Grant movie.
Yeah.
So, if it really is, it's a 50-50.
See, I actually gave this a higher score than You've Got Mail, only because the movie length was right. It didn't feel like it was dragging, and also the fact that I felt like there was more peaks and lows. Like there was instances where we really rose and really dropped down. And so I mean, you don't always want a low point in a movie, but it gives emphasis to the peaks. And so this is why I give it a high 5 or a low 6. High 5.
That makes sense.
But I gave it a 6 rather than the 5 that I gave to You've Got Mail.
What about you, Amy?
Probably only about a half a point less than You've Got Mail.
So 6.
Yeah, I like that You've Got Mail is a little bit more based in reality as far as a love story goes.
Yeah.
But Sleepless in Seattle is definitely more of the fantasy end of love to me, which can be fun, which is fine. But I'd prefer, I like the relationship development that was in You've Got Mail more.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why they used the Empire State Building too, because one of the, this is the film student in me, the one film class I took. It was New York is supposed to be represented anything could happen in New York, and which is why they went to New York rather than met in Seattle, because New York is the magical town where anything's possible. And so that.
So they were promoting two big cities, and then You've Got Mail was promoting typewriters.
Yeah, very much.
Well, You've Got Mail was completely set in New York.
It was.
I mean, if it's already set in New York, you got to focus on typewriters. It's like the rule.
And taxi cabs. There was a lot of taxi cabs, and they were very different. You didn't see the generic 20 pristine taxi cabs. There was dinged up ones, different shapes, different types. Although in Sleepless in Seattle, there was a scene where Tom Hanks runs out, cuts in line to grab a taxi, and Larry's like, "Money, you like money? Here's money. Let me have the cab."
Yeah, that was awesome.
I was like, "Oh, that's very New York of you."
But he was from Chicago and living in Seattle. So,
well, either way, I think they're basically the same movie.
Yeah, for the most part.
They're both decent.
Yeah.
And on that note, I believe that wraps up our Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan rom-com.
Yeah, let us know what
hour.
you think of the movies and maybe how you would rate them. Or if you haven't seen them, maybe give it a try.
Or if you want, watch both of these and compare them to Joe versus the Volcano, which is the hands down superior Meg Ryan Tom Hanks movie.
So after all this, we're just going to recommend a whole different movie.
Honestly, it's a smart movie. It's well designed. Like they spent a lot of time like laying down groundwork and then following up with the movie. Like it was just a really good movie.
It is.
Like,
Yeah.
I would give it a solid 7.
So after watching Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail, I very, very highly recommend that you watch Joe versus the Volcano and the Burbs.
All right, and so Steve, go ahead and give us the lead out, and I'll wrap it up with my last little thingy.
If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, hit us up on our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/abovetheairwaves or at abovetheairwaves.com. And once again, please consider supporting us on Patreon if you want us to keep doing what we're doing.
H&G. Hi and goodbye.
All right, take it easy, folks.